everybody! Hey guys! Sorry, a little bit of a late lunch today. Anyway, how is everybody doing today? Welcome to my stream. Today should be lots of fun and entertaining. I'm super excited about it. As you can tell with what I have on screen, life should be interesting today. Alright, so before we get into the nitty-gritty of today's stream, I kind of want to know how everybody's doing. Let me double check a couple things on my end. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Okay. If you're wondering whose paw that is, we have a co-host of the cute variety. Huh, RJ? Yeah. Aww. He said hello, everybody. Anyway, hold on. There we go. I apologize for the glare here. There's sun, so it is what it is. But yeah, so sorry, a little flustered. Oh, I don't know about you guys, but it's been a crazy day today. I was not going to stream today, actually, because I was feeling under the weather and I had a flare. But, well, messages are awesome. Hi, Buzz! How are you? Oh my gosh. I am so sorry for Tuesday. Well, no, I did stream on Tuesday, but I had to delete it because my boyfriend was taking care of the toilet, which broke, or no, tub that broke. And well, it did it like right as I started streaming, and I was like, okay, well, he's taking care of it in the background. I'll stream. We're good. And then a couple minutes later, he was like, no, babe, I need you. And I'm like, all right, well, end stream. So, anyway, I apologize for that. But regardless, hey, he's at work today. We're here. We can have fun. I am so stoked for today. Like, it's going to be so fun. I cannot wait to show you guys what I have planned. I really hope that, well, the things are going good with y'all. Kind of fun when you're dual streaming. I don't see anybody on Twitch. By the way, guys, I do have Twitch, so if you want to hop over to Twitch, feel free. You know, have fun with that. Alright, so let's get on with today's stream. So today's stream is about the butterfly effect. Just in general, because I was like kind of feeling philosophical today. And like and I was also watching like a bunch of games and movies being played and stuff like that, and it got me to thinking like how just the tiniest question or the tiniest thought or the tiniest little thing can kind of grow into a bigger idea than what we thought. Wait a second. Oh, yes, I know. Yeah, RJ says that he that's his 2 words. It's 2 sentences. You're silly. Anyway, but yeah, so we're kind of just gonna go a little abnormal today. I mean, normally I do have a more structured stream, but today we're just gonna go have fun with it. Because again, like, I just kind of want to have fun, and And I know that when it comes to, you know, YouTube streams and, well, streams in general, yeah, it should be fun. Anyway, alright, so today, without further ado, like I said, it's the butterfly effect. I promise it's not going to be boring. It's not going to be dull. I'll make it fun. I promise. Alright, so. It does make you wonder, though. Like, the reason why I was thinking about this was because I was feeling. Well, I was thinking about what happened to me last week, where, if y'all don't know, I had gotten a job interview. And it's like, awesome, perfect. And this is like a job interview that comes once a year, especially around here, because not many people leave the market in that particular job field. And I was like, oh, cool, awesome. Well, I'll just go apply. And I went and applied, and I got a job interview. And I went in, and I, did it all, thought I was good enough, and I ended up not getting the job. And it got me to thinking about how many choices in our lives, like, kind of lead us to certain things that happen. And I mean, I won't deny that I was like very sad and depressed after I didn't get the job because it was my dream job, and I was like, why not? But it also made me think of, like, why not? Like, why is it so hard for me to find a job? Not that I don't love streaming on YouTube and Twitch. Not that I don't love y'all, but at the same time, it's really, I don't know. It's really hard to kind of just see the bigger picture. So a lot of times I think that that's the problem. And oh, excuse me. All right. So what do you guys know about the butterfly effect? Like, I mean, besides like what everybody talks about as far as like the butterfly effect. And I don't know. Has it really I haven't really like personally seen it affect anything. And as far as like storytelling and like gamers and stuff like that I've noticed when they apply the butterfly effect, 9 times out of 10 it doesn't work. And it's annoying when it doesn't work. But those few where it's perfect, it's normally horror related. Like, why is that? Why is that the only genre in literally everything where the butterfly effect is applied so perfectly? Even fantasy, where you would think that the butterfly effect would be, just gung-ho and perfect for as well. No, most of the time it's horror that does it perfect. And I don't know. I just find it really annoying. And a few of the games that I have observed that have actually done it outside of horror kind of do it sloppy, or they don't set it up right, or even books. Oh my god, the books, guys. Like, it's the whole like foreshadowing thing that everybody and their dog talks about. Yeah, oh yeah, mystery too, that's right. That's true. Yeah, I forget about mystery. But I just I just wish it was more like broadly, applied to everywhere. Um exactly, where it's just a small clue and you don't realize that it escalated to the end. Like I would read the hell out of a fantasy novel that did that. where they talked about like the tiniest little thing and then like ballooned it to be the butterfly effect. Oh, wait, no. I'm incorrect. Oh, nope. I'm incorrect. There's actually a fairy tale. I don't remember the name of it, but it's a Grimm's fairy tale where because of a mouse because a mouse rescued a princess, the princess was able to save her kingdom. Anyway, so that's kind of the kind of what I'm talking about. And anyway, something small unimportant detail end up to be crucial. Yes, yes. Which, if you notice, is the same thing through our lives. And I mean, everywhere there's the butterfly effect. And honestly, I kind of find it funny that it's called the butterfly effect and not just tiny insect effect. But I guess it doesn't really, like fall off your tongue as much. But anyway, so the first thing I want to point out that I was actually shocked when I was doing research for this topic was that, so we've all seen Aliens, right? I mean, I saw it more recently than everybody else because my family was like, "Oh no, horror bad." Anyway, and I really loved that because there was like a really good story. It was okay, but there was always something that was bugging me throughout the entire movie. And the very end scene answered what was bugging the hell out of me. Because if you noticed, exactly, yeah. Well, in this one, sorry. Okay. Side note to answer you, Werbus. In the one that I was talking about, uh hold on. Let me go look. I'll be back. No. Let's see. And the one I was talking about, is it one of theirs? Could not be one of theirs. Which is a lot. Maybe it was a fable. I think you're right. It probably was a fable. I don't know what fable though. Um, but yeah, fables and acts of kindness. Yeah, I just kind of wish that a lot of people utilized it more everywhere they went. But anyway, as I was saying, so the scene that like really made me mad in Aliens was at the very end, and it just was really really annoying. Yep, it was really annoying because throughout the entire movie you're like, okay, well, how do they defend themselves against the aliens? Like what's going on? Like you have all of these questions, okay? And at the very end, you get to that little kid putting glasses of water around the whole house with no explanation. And then the alien comes in and the kid splashes the alien with the water and the alien runs away. And I'm just like, that's it. That's stupid. First off, why would you, as an alien species, land on a planet that's like 3/4 water? Okay. Two, if that's the case, then why hadn't they been destroyed before now, you know? Like, uh, yeah, I have so many problems with science. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a good movie, kind of, sort of. But it's just like, like that one scene just, oh, pisses me off for the whole movie. Like, it ruins it for me every time. And I've watched it a few times, and it's like, I mean, yeah, as you watch it, you notice every time that you notice when he starts to gather the water through the house. And when I first watched it, I was like, why? And then at the end, I was like, I was about to throw my remote into the TV at that. Oh, was he really? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. No, aliens. Like the oh, what is it? Is it aliens? The ones with the cornfield. Like the farmer and the cornfield, and is that, I didn't really pay much attention if it was like a religious one either. I honestly, I found it ridiculous. I just watched it because my boyfriend was like, "Sit here and watch this movie," so I watched it. But but no, that's what makes me so mad is like throughout the entire movie, it doesn't tell you if there's aliens, doesn't tell you about the aliens, doesn't give you anything, hardly anything. And like there's not that much of a story in it until like the very end, and then you're like, "Oh, okay." Yeah. Well, that's yeah, that's true. That's true. I guess I should rewatch it and like actually pay attention. I was just so, I'm just, that ending frustrates me so bad. Oh my god. Oh, anyway. So another one, true, true, true. So another one that kind of, at least for me, shows in general when it comes to characters, the butterfly effect was Jack Sparrow. Because he originally wasn't supposed to be. That is true. 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 But okay. Anyway, but Jack Sparrow, like the audience's perception of him, because at first you're like, okay, well, he's just this weird little quirky guy off to the side, but then you notice that like everybody talks about him, falls in love with him, wants to dress up like him. Forget about Will Turner, but Jack Sparrow. Like people watch the movies for Jack Sparrow. And I find it funny. I was actually looking or watching the first one a couple of days ago, and I noticed the butterfly effect in it because at the beginning of the movie, yeah, it introduces him, but it's not like, not a big show of it. Um, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Anyway, um, but he's just not that big of a part of it. And if you look at it from the storyteller's perspective, he's kind of the side character that got away, which again is why he's in one of my videos that I put as second characters, I believe. As second characters. Oh, what was the name of the movie or the video I did? Yes. Yes, he very much was. He very much was. And I mean, I mean, I get that. Like, he was Han Solo, but he had a very, like, I don't know. To me, it was more of a subtle. It was more subtle than Han Solo was as a side character, becoming everybody's favorite love interest type thing. Because at first, like there's nothing to Han Solo, or there's more to Han Solo than there was to Jack Sparrow. I think what it is that Jack Sparrow just exudes the mystery, and the sly confidence that kind of made him into like the perfect pirate. And of course, like we don't really know like all of his background and all that stuff, but I did love the little pieces that they added into it. Oh my god, those were the best ever. But it just it just goes to show that like even the tiniest characters in any like movie out there or film or book. You okay? You're being distracting. Okay. Anyway, can kind of be the butterfly in the movie. And honestly, I tried doing that with one of my books and it failed spectacularly. But but I tried to do it at the very beginning. True, true, true. That's true. Anyway, that is true, Bess. That is true. But are you gonna chill now? Okay, thank you. I made me lose my spot. Are you happy? Obviously. Um, where was I going with it? I don't remember. Let's move on. Um, another another kind of thing about it is like when you have moments of self-doubt killing projects or becoming the spark that ignites a project. Like really everybody does that, right? Like we all have those moments. Look at the pretty butterfly. Oh, that's what I wanted as the first one. Sorry. Anyway, um um like any moments of self-doubt that could kill a project. Like when I first started, this is what I first started with, was just a long list of things to talk about, to write about, to, of course I had a blog at first. That should tell you how old I am. Um, but the thing is that I have learned that if I hadn't started when I wanted to, doing that, and then I wouldn't be where I was. And and I think it's important to point out that I did delete a lot of videos. I mean, if you look at my gallery, how I have it now, that is like 1/3 of the videos that, well, have made it through. And I think it's interesting that a lot of people don't know just how many things get deleted before the public sees them, whether they really see them or not, and before they become a fruition type thing. And it's like with this, I could tell you right now that none of those made it to the final cut. Because a lot of times when you're a beginner, you're just throwing spaghetti at the wall, basically, and you're trying to see what sticks. The thing is that you can also get into where you just start deleting everything that doesn't stick. But the problem is, and I've learned this recently, that when it comes to certain ideas, sometimes those ideas aren't meant to be posted at that time. Have them, yes. Please have all of the ideas in the entire world. Put them down, write them down, but just know that not every idea needs to have a life outside of you at that moment. And I do know that I'm kind of contradicting what I say in one of my videos, um, which is, you know, not a good thing, I guess. But it's just like, um, let's see, where was it? Oh, yes. Where I did a long form last week, I believe. Last week? Yeah, last week. Where I talked about preparation becoming the work. Um, uh, and, and right as I was doing that, right after I did that, was when I realized that the shorts that I was doing, yep, usually, actually, I talked about that in the video a lot, and anyway, and after I got done with that video, I looked at all the shorts I was doing, like the shorts that are posting now. And I realized that they're not they're not my best work, but they're ideas that needed to be out at this specific time. Are they doing great? No. But you know what? I think a lot of creators and designers out there and people out there who are in this creative space need to realize that throwing spaghetti at the wall isn't just a beginner thing. It's something that happens at every level that you're at. Um because a lot of times, like, you won't know everything, every trend that's happening, every interest that piques your audience, or everything, every idea that piques your audience's interest. Oh my goodness. Um, at the time. And so you do need to have those times where you just throw spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks, and then go along that route for a little bit. And it's a lot like businesses canceling their products later after, oh, that later becomes successful under somebody else. Which, I mean, you have like hundreds and hundreds of ideas like that. Like, oh gosh, I can't think of them all. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Ring one? I could be wrong on that. I don't know. Um, but actually no, we'll just go with that route. So with Ring is my favorite story when it comes to the butterfly effect. Right, I'm not talking beta readers. I'm talking about like posting things, like posting shorts or just posting whatever. Um because not everybody, yeah, I don't have beta readers. My beta readers are my, is my audience. That's my beta readers. If it hits, it hits. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I mean, nobody can really afford them anyway, if we're being honest, right? Especially in this economy. That's true. That's true. But the thing is that with beta readers and with your audience, a lot of times, at least hopefully, when you do throw your ideas out there, you'll get like at least some feedback. Something is feedback. There's always feedback in everything. Like this past week with my shorts, like I was throwing spaghetti at the wall and I was like, hey, if these hit, great. I know what to talk about next month. If they don't, At least the algorithm is happy to know that I am still alive, which is so important. And, you know, especially when you're at that like awkward growth phase that happens to everybody all the time. And it just, anyway, sorry. So back to the ring. Back to Ring. It's my favorite story of kind of like an underdog story because they were they were refused at every angle, right? Or something like that. Anyway, and and eventually they just decided to say, "Fuck it, we'll just go do it ourselves." Or did they get backing? Hold on, I could be incorrect. Let me look it up. Oh. Oh, okay. So it was after they appeared on Shark Tank. Okay. All right. Anyway, so after they got rejected, they actually scaled immensely after that because it's exposure. That's literally what it is. It was just exposure for them. And again, it's the butterfly effect in that way because them being rejected allowed thousands upon thousands, even millions of people to see them eventually and buy their product. Just because of one simple rejection, which I've seen that episode and I'm kind of not surprised that they got rejected. I'm just saying, just not surprised at all. Not in the slightest. Um, but it is nice to, nice that they had a little comeback. As always. Um, and then we have something that ties into today's story time. I don't know what I'm gonna call it. Um, let's see. Story lab? Yeah, today's story lab. Where one historical decision took care of an entire civilization. Well, it wasn't just one civilization, because if you think about it, or maybe decisions, yeah. Anyway, so the Silk Road trade route, which we're going to talk about later on, um, if you read the story about it, there's a lot in there where it ebbed and flowed, depending on who was in power, who and who anyway, and who built what where, basically. And it was a lot of like ebb and flow because if you look at it throughout the years, there's not one direct route, which would have been nice, but there's no such thing. And sorry, I just have like thoughts and ideas about that one that we'll talk about later. Um, but another one that made me kind of be shocked was, how in Cars that they brought in the whole fact of like the highways rerouting in the US, leaving boom towns to decline almost overnight, which I was like, oh, like in Cars. And even though I lived in these areas and I should have known this, I actually looked it up and it kind of shocked me, the statistic of that. Because almost every town that was part of the way west before roads became a thing, and you would go through trails and everything, um it was so sad to like see see the gravitation, and and there's so many like ruins out there. There's so many like dead houses. There's so many abandoned places out there. It's insane, y'all. It's insane. I mean, I could spend days exploring out there and not get tired. It was an amazing place to live for that reason alone. Um, but anyways, but it just reminds me of like just one decision can like change the course of history. Just one tiny decision. And it's kind of interesting how even though it can be like, this massive, huge global effect, but it also affects our day-to-day lives. And it's like, um, I don't know if you guys remember, but when they reintroduced the wolves to Arizona, to Yellowstone, that was that was the butterfly effect in effect. And if I could write it, I would probably be a bit more romantic about that, actually. I'm sorry. It's just with how they reintroduced them, it was really sweet. Like really, really sweet. And although I'm not a fan of, oh, what is it called? Yes. Yes. Ah, yes. I don't remember the name of it. Anyway, um, like when they were first introduced, or before they were introduced, the like having lived over there, okay, because I actually lived in the area where they were reintroduced. Okay, like a couple miles off, but before it was so dead, like in spots, in several spots, it was like horrible place to go visit. And then you'd have like these pockets of where the herds mostly were, and it was like green and very stinky, and like it wasn't fun or awesome or anything. And it wasn't it wasn't as good as it could be. And and this was back when, there was all the like, let's get rid of all the wolves, let's shoot them all on sight, and also coyotes and bears, and basically it was just like humanity against the wild. Was I a fan of it? No, because I was like, guys, you're stupid. Because because the wilderness was dying and they didn't see it. It literally was dying. I mean, there were days where we didn't see any grain, even walking out for months. Um, true, true. Unfortunately, they did. Unfortunately. But anyway, when they reintroduced the wolves, it started growing back green and beautiful, and the parks literally doubled overnight in views, or not views, in visitors. And it was really a wonderful thing to see the world come back. Because before it was like terrible and just, oh, no thank you. And then when the wolves came back and were able to make the herds move in the way that they had moved before, it was a really wonderful thing to see kind of the effects of not just the herds moving, but also like how they affected the world around them, and to just kind of see it grow out from there, which was really amazing to watch firsthand. Because yeah, you'll see the documentary about it and all that stuff. And yeah, the documentary puts it down to like what, an hour and a half of explaining the whole thing to you, but having lived literally in the neighborhood, like literally, and watching it firsthand, it's like, why did we get rid of them? I mean, I understand from a farmer's perspective why, but at the same time, there's deterrents. There's ways to get them off the property for good without having to put a bullet to their head or have a dog attack them. Like there are ways, and I think, I do feel pity for the farmers, but at the same time, also, like, it's like you gotta learn how to live with nature, because nature is always going to come back and bite you in the ass no matter what. Because even before they reintroduced the wolves, farmers were really, really pissed off at it, like very pissed off. um no, it's the butterfly effect, because it's the tiny little decisions to bring them back. That's what I'm pointing out. Sorry. Sorry if it's not making sense. But the decision to bring them back was the butterfly effect in motion, if you think about it that way. Because just one decision to bring them back, like if they had left them, if they had just said, nope, they're extinct, they're gone, they're not coming back, imagine how bad the world would have been. It would have been bad. So the butterfly effect is them returning to create a more beautiful world for all of us to enjoy. That's the butterfly effect. Ooh, sorry. Random rabbit hole. But it kind of points out that if that tiny of a detail, that tiny of an animal, technically tiny, okay, not really tiny, I know, but technically tiny, of an animal that seemingly, at least to us at the time, didn't have that much impact on the environment, if that had like truly disappeared, like there was no wolves to be found everywhere in the entire world, would anything change? And I can say, yeah, it would change a lot. Like, we had droughts upon droughts. It was so bad, guys. Like the fires every year were just getting worse and worse. And honestly, I'm grateful that they brought them back. Honestly. And then we get to my fun part. The fun part that I absolutely was excited to talk about. But then we're gonna follow the spark to a different butterfly effect. So I don't know about you guys, but I do believe in one moment changes everything minutes events, because exactly, tiny thing, big consequences, exactly. And the reason for that is because actually, I'm gonna reintroduce that. I'm gonna change how I introduce that. Okay. So have you guys ever had a dream since you were a little kid? Like I'm not talking about what you're doing right now. I'm talking in general. Like, did you ever have like an animal you desperately wanted to see? Did you ever have a specific place you wanted to go visit, like Disneyland? Did you have one specific thing you wanted to do growing up that you never got to? Well, I did. I actually, when I was a kid, I would beg my parents to see SeaWorld. I wanted to go to SeaWorld. I wanted to see orcas. And my family would constantly say, no, we don't got the money, or no, we're spending our money on this trip or on this trip. And it got to the point when I was like 5 years old that I gave up on that dream. And little did I know that somewhere in the ether or something, Mother Nature or somebody was listening and decided to, make it happen. Well, it took several years. Okay, it took like 30 years. But I was actually finally able to go to SeaWorld with my boyfriend. He surprised me for my birthday 2 years ago. And I was super excited, super stoked. I walked in there and I cried. And I'm not normally a crier. Like I have no tears and most of the time. And I walked in there and I cried and he looked at me with the most worried of faces. And I was like, I'm good, I'm good. And that was when I realized that this trip was my butterfly effect. Because I had told myself back then that no matter what, I was going to go see a orca. Even if I had to travel to the sea, I would go see an orca. And then we went to the show that day, and of course this was after seeing all the other animals that they had there, which were amazing and wonderful. And coming from the desert, well, it was kind of shocking. Like, I would stop every 5 minutes, be like, what's that? What's that? What's that? Like, I was a little kid at Christmas. But when I saw my first orca, I cried again because that was my butterfly moment. Because I had waited so long to see them. And we had happened to sit like right behind the cameraman and get great shots, which this is one of them. And it was just so amazing to like stand there, sit there and like feel like a kid again. Which um which kind of changed everything for me because as a kid, I always wanted to write about the big, write about the orcas, write about really the sea, like anything beyond my little town. And when I saw the orca as an adult, I realized that, I did. My whole journey was literally for me seeing this tiny little town and wanting to get away. I explored everywhere. Well, almost everywhere. And when I finally got to see the orca, it was a really wonderful thing. And I also saw a butterfly that day too, by the way. which is why I took a picture of it. That's what this one is. But yeah. Um but it's just like it did remind me that like a lot of times when it comes to putting the butterfly effect in like books or stories or movies, a lot of people forget to include the little thing at the beginning. Um, which is a pet peeve of mine. Because it's like in order like in order for there to be payoff at the end for the big reveal, you need to have something small to start first. Are you good? Okay. Um, and it's just like there are so many movies out there that don't do it justice, honestly. And there are movies and videos out there that do. And um mm, and it just makes me kind of peeved when they don't do it right, the right way. Because a lot of times, yeah. like oh, what was it? I was watching something the other day. I can't remember what the name of the movie was, but it was a action romance type movie. And at the beginning you have the kids saying basically like, yeah, I'll be the protector. And at the very end, it turns out he's not the protector. As he's built his whole life being this personified hero to everybody else. It was a really weird movie. And I was just sitting there going, hold on, what? I don't remember the name of it, but I remember being peeved because there was no, like, no tie to him at the beginning. So it didn't really feel like a good butterfly effect. Maybe it's a good thing I don't remember it because I would bash on it all day long. But, um, yeah, that movie sucked. It sucked so bad. Um, anyways, all right. So before we jump into the main feature, I see I have somebody on Twitch. Hello. Oh, no. Hello. I want to say a quick hello to anybody who's joined. I'm WriteSparky, and if this is your first stream, we spend these chasing story holes, history, and whatever rabbit ideas curiosity throws at us. So, let's get into today's big question. And I know, I've been talking about it this whole stream. We're not getting to the juicy stuff yet. So, I want to break it into 3 little conversations, and feel free to pop in and say what you think. So, part 1 is the domino. Like, when you look at stories, at history, at videos, at games, not just as developers, by the way, this applies to everybody, but what would be the first domino of a story? Or what would be the first domino you guys notice about any game? Feel free to let me know in the comments or in chat. For me, the one that and for me the domino would be when it comes to Lord of the Rings, like the whole Bilbo, the whole thing about, oh, actually, no, fun fact, I don't know if you guys know this, but fun fact, The Hobbit was written after Lord of the Rings. Interesting. I know. Cool. But the first domino in there always fascinates me. Like, it's a party. Like, the first domino in there is a party, a big party for a guy who's stole a ring, basically. And it's like it out of context, like without any knowledge of Lord of the Rings, without any knowledge of how the story ends, like what would you expect that ending to be? Like from the first domino. And I mean, I don't know, like oh, it was edited. Okay, my apologies. My apologies. I thought it was created after. Sorry. My apologies. Anyway, but still, like, it still makes you wonder, like, without all that context. Um, yeah, it is true. It is true. It is only 3 pages, which is crazy when you think about it. Like, just a tiny little pinprick of their history took that many books. Anyways, but like that concept aside, it makes you wonder, as part of a story, don't, RJ, you child, stop. Oh, hold on. No. Behave. Sorry, guys. Anyway, where was I? 10 more lives. uh, yeah. He'll get used to it. He'll be fine. Um, where was I now? They have me losing my spot, child. Um, okay. Did that. Did that. Okay. Domino. Yeah, that's where we're at. Anyway. Sorry. Children. Actually, no, you know what? I'm gonna use him as my first domino. Let's use him as my first domino. Okay. So, RJ, cute little fat cat that he is. Um, when he first came to us, he his first domino was he was a yard kitty because my boyfriend works as a mechanic, and just brought him home one day because he decided to take a little trip into a lunchbox without realizing that it was moving. He fell asleep fast, and that was fun. And he got brought home, and I think that his first domino was probably finding the one person in the whole yard that loves cats. Just the one person. Because mind you, my boyfriend works with a crew of like 5-10 people. And, all of them love animals, but he had to pick my boyfriend. Of course. And it's really interesting because now he is a super spoiled kitty. And it just makes you wonder, like, if you didn't do that, you know, why? Anyway. Oh. Sorry, I'm not making sense. Oh. He just bugs me sometimes. Anyway, although we do have suspicion that he was previously a human raised kitty. We don't know. We don't know much about him. But he was very skinny when he got to us. He was very much a food motivated cat. We'll just say that. Anyway, sorry, where was I at? Oh yes. Then you have hold on. Trying to find my spot. If I can find my spot. Oh, actually, here's another good first domino. The asteroid that ended the dinosaurs. Like, well, okay. It didn't entirely end the dinosaurs, we know. But it makes you wonder if that didn't happen, would we still exist? Like would we as a society, as a culture, still be around if dinosaurs never went extinct? That way. I don't know. Anyways, um, actually, give me a quick second, guys. I need to do something. I'll be back. Oh, not that screen. Oh, behave, child.
One's my third second. Whitey and Night with one too.
Sorry about that, guys. Give me a little bit longer. And I promise it's not the opposite of a butterfly effect. I'll be right back. Yeah, that's true. Oh, you can't excuse me. That's true, that's true. Um, but okay, so basically a butterfly effect is what? Like, um, sorry. Actually, you know what? That's true. That's true. We're gonna skip that. Because I'm starting to like uh forget what I was gonna go with that one. Um we'll just skip to the story lab. Actually no. We'll skip to the next part. Speaking of tiny details, my dear. So those tiny details tend to be a spark, right? Like a spark of something or a spark under something that's already waiting to burn. Like revolutions, wars, creative breakthroughs that often look like all of a sudden they were there when they're not really. It's just years of hoping and praying somebody notices you. Yeah. That's kind of what the butterfly effect is in effect. Because a lot of times as creators, we tend to do like small, tiny, insignificant things that matter in the long run, whether we realize it or not. And we're often obsessed with finding a big break, or to break through the ceiling, or to, how, I really hate saying this phrase, but go viral. We all know how I feel about that phrase. Anyway, but the thing is that most creative work, most channels, most games, they don't explode into the public platform. Right. But the pressure has to build, no? I mean, come on. Give me a little. Give me a little leeway here. The pressure has to build. And little by little, that's the butterfly effect. It's one thing that's growing into something bigger and bigger and bigger until it's something you can't ignore anymore. Like revolution. Or like creating a YouTube channel, or creating a Twitch stream, or creating a game, or becoming a game developer. It's something that's teeny tiny that changes the course of your future, basically. So that would be a revolution, a war, and a creative breakthrough, right? Because the thing is it's like, people don't realize that a lot of channels don't explode because of one perfect video, one viral clip. It's more, if you think about it, like the tiny little things, like daily uploads, or uploads in general, or a little improvement, or something unique about that improvement, a little specific type of edit, or an experiment, or they just repeated everything hundreds of times to kind of get themselves out there. That's the butterfly effect in real time. And I mean, we see this everywhere. Like, not even just content creators, but really in workplaces, in, gosh, everywhere. And it's the thing is, the thing is that it's something that starts with an incredibly boring piece. Just one. Like a lot of creators out there, you hear them say, oh yeah, well, I was doing X, Y, and Z before I made it big. Well, what started that make it big? Like, what started that? Because I can tell you right now, not every creator out there is going to be like instant blow up. The ones who do are lucky if they stay that way. Because a lot of times the thing that made you blow up is not the thing that's going to sustain you for long. And which again is the butterfly effect in effect. Because give me a quick second, guys. Thank you. And because it usually starts with something boring. I don't know where I was going with that other sentence. Had something distract me, I apologize. But honestly, it's kind of an encouraging thought for all of us newbies in the field, is the thought that, like, every little single thing you do will affect how your future is, will affect how your content evolves. Every little thing, be it an experiment, be it whatever. And the thing is it's important to know that although not every idea needs to come to fruition, we need to get in the habit of having those ideas constantly. Because a lot of times, if you don't, the well's gonna run dry, and then what else are you gonna do with your life, right? Right, right. But how did they find them? Yeah, when they repost. When they repost. Meaning there needs to be content there before, right? Right, Bess? Well, yeah. Like if you have popular people, I'm talking about non-popular people. Okay, the common folk. The ones who do not have popularity on their side. Because I'm sure that there are hundreds of other people that would disagree with me as well. But I'm not talking popularity. I'm talking about people like you and me where we don't have. Yeah, true, true, true. Same bubble as you. Yeah, that's true. That's true. It really depends on your connections when you're in this area. But a lot of times you're publishing for years before the fact. Like me this year. I actually was lucky to get up to 147 subscribers. But at the beginning of this year, I only had 100. Like, was it 100? No, it was 120. Yeah. I had very few. Very, very few. And it's really hard when you're not popular to get many people to come, which is normal. Thank God. But yes, it does help if you have connections or if they're in the same bubble as you, same niche as you, same what have you. Totally, totally yes. Um, so now on to my favorite thing that I was itching to talk about all day long. The Silk Road. Oh my god. Oh, when I created this video, and I promise it ties to the butterfly effect. I promise. When I created this video, I was so excited about it because I love the Silk Road. And mind you, it's not one road, as you can see pictured. It's like hundreds of roads gathered together that just happen to be connecting. Like a massive. Oh, that's awesome. Congrats. That's awesome, Bus. Congrats. Anyway. But as you can tell, like all of the different, it's all interconnected and stuff like that, like a big spider web. And I found out an interesting fact. It actually started in here, in this little area, right there. Correct. Correct. It is it is really nice to get shown by somebody who have lots of eyes on them. Yes. Yes, I agree. I agree. And that's usually how people grow and well, if you also think about it too, it's also the money of these times. But yes. Yes, it is. Totally agree with you on that. Um anyways. It's the currency. There you go. No, no, there's a better phrase. Attention is the currency of the times. That's actually a good phrase. I should coin that phrase. Become a billionaire. Oh, if only, if only, if only. Anyway, so yeah, so the Silk Road. That's one that I don't have it on here. Um. Anyway, that is one that I created a couple of weeks ago that I absolutely, absolutely loved. Let me find it first. Yes, it does. Yes, it does, and it's not fair. I wish they could share a slice, you know? Really wish they could share a slice. But they don't. And it's fine, I guess. I guess. There we go. So give me a quick second. Into stop. Nope, stop. Thank you. Alright. So this... Hello. Shush, go away. Anyway. So... Where was I at? Oh, yes. Silk Road. So when it came to the Silk Road, as I was doing the research on it, I always thought that it would be like the perfect... Yeah, that's true. That's true. That is so true. Yeah. Yeah, I know. And then you tend to get like the same boring ads, or like you just get the most randomest of ads. Like, especially when you're creating content. It's so funny to see some of them. Hello. Hi, welcome back. Are you gonna behave now? Okay, thank you. Anyway, yeah, some of the ads I get, guys, is so funny. Like I get ads for Guy Cologne. I get ads for streaming services, which I don't stream. I can't afford those. And I also get ads for like blow up your channel today, which is funny. Oh, so funny. Anyway, so about the Silk Road. So the cool thing about the Silk Road that I didn't know was that every single, like how they created the Silk Road was they actually used a camel for most of it. The stuff inland, I'm not talking about all the stuff out here. I'm talking about inland, like specifically this area, that Silk Road. Like, they had a camel go from one spot to another, and when it couldn't go any further, they built a settlement, or what's known as a caravanserai, which I believe I have that. Yeah. So this is an example of a caravanserai. Could be saying that wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyway, so basically what they were, yeah, they are most scams. Yeah. They are so many scams out there. I kind of wish scams were like non-existent. I get scammed so much, or well, according to them, it gets scammed, but I'm too smart for them. I've seen them come like a million miles away. So, you know, it is what it is. Anyways, so about the caravanserais. The really cool thing that I learned was that after they had walked the camel through and set these up at the resting points for the camel, that they built along these roads, was that even though it was considered one road, it still would ebb and flow depending on who was in charge, who built the thing, who was the ruler of that specific country, because as you can tell, it ran through several countries, and not all of them liked their neighbors, especially Mongolia. And you know, this area, yeah, they didn't like their neighbors. And anyway, but the really cool thing is that I love about the Silk Road is that it was a trade commerce trail to basically like ship goods from one continent or from one side to another of the continent, which is amazing when you think about it because you could put a cowboy, you could put an Indian, you can put a samurai, and you can put like a knight all on that road and it would be historically accurate because it lasted a long time. I think the Silk Road, well, I think it's still up to this day. I could be wrong. Let me look it up real quick. Oh, 1600 years. Wow, that's a long time. Anyway, it was a 4,000-mile network of roads connecting East Asia to the Mediterranean. Of course. And it got closed when the Ottoman Empire blocked trade. Of course it did. Of course they did. Anyway, but it's really cool that you can have like a wide variety of people go through modern day, like not modern day, but you know what I mean, like realistic people that you wouldn't think be on those roads going from one spot to another. And these were like the main roads of travel. Like you wanted to get to a country, you wanted to go to X place, you just hopped on the road and walked, or rode, or, or stuff, or took a camel. And I think the really cool thing is that when I was doing research on this for the video, is that each caravansary that they had was like, man, if those walls could talk. Really, seriously, if those walls could talk, if some of those still existed and those walls could talk, like, can you imagine the stories? Like there's actual proof, and I say it in my video that I'm about to show, where a monk was not happy with the translation that he was reading in China, found out that it was originally published here in India. So he walked all the way across China and into India and retranslated it correctly and took it all the way back. That's it. That's all he wanted to do. That's it. So can you imagine somebody doing something that mundane today? I'm especially with phones. But it's just like it kind of opens your eyes to the perspectives of it, because not only that, but not everybody on those roads understood each other's languages. I mean, there was no Google Translate. There was no excuse me. There was no translator for it. And I don't know, I kind of like the thought of having, like a group of people from a variety of cultures just sitting around a fire in silence. I mean, you don't know if the stranger next to you is going to kill you or not, but you just trust that they also view the caravansary as a place of like rest and refreshment and getting to from point A to point B safely as a rest stop. And damn, I would love to make a story like that. And it just also, like, it makes you think about, like, how fantasies are structured. Because fantasy worlds have that too. They have a road that goes through the country and you see all these different, like, villages and everything. And I mean, I don't know if it's true, but I kind of like to think that that it became a thing after, to kind of mirror after the Silk Road, because honestly, like, the Silk Road was pretty freaking cool. Still cool in my opinion, because it acted like this, like, connection between these different cultures and these different people and these different lands, unspoken. Like, nobody decided to call it the Silk Road. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it just, I mean, can you imagine having walked it, or like rode a horse, or like traveled by, like, a caravan? Oh, that'd be so cool. That would be cool, honestly. Especially like seeing all the different people, and just like, I don't know. I think it'd be really cool if we went back then. I mean, okay, no, let me rephrase that. I think it'd be cool to go back then as a herald. Although that was not a very good occupation back then, but I kind of like that thought, because you were the one behind the scenes of going from point A to point B and carrying X message to X general, and I don't know, it's just romantic. I think it's romantic. I could be wrong. Like this, for example. Like, can you picture doing that? I mean, even for a living. I know, right? It's so annoying. I kind of wish they had the language inconvenience. I wish they would, because it would make it more fun. I mean, come on. Just, it would make for a good story, in my opinion, if they did that. Because because you're literally sitting there and you don't know if the guy next to you is going to kill you or going to be your best friend, and the only thing you have to talk to each other at is like hand signals or pointing. And I don't know, that would just be a really cool story. Or like stories, like you could have it like be a branch off stories, like oh, what was the one I was thinking of? Oh, like Lord of the Rings, actually. I know we brought it up earlier, but I can't help but think that it's similar to Lord of the Rings if you think about it, because like you have a road going through several cultures, meeting different people, and every person you meet, you're not entirely sure it's going to stab you in the back or become your best friend or a friend. And oh no, I haven't. 13th Warrior? I have not. I'm gonna put that on my to watch list. um, I haven't seen that. Who's it by? Do you know? Or is it a book or a movie? Or show, I should say. Um, see if I can find it. There you go. Ooh. I'm looking it up. Oh, 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 it's that movie? Dude. Dude. Okay, yeah, totally watching that. Totally watching that. Totally watching that. Oh my goodness. Hmm. I need to watch that now. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Buzz. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Damn, that's so cool. Does it mention the Silk Road or is it just, I mean, I don't know when it's made or what time frame it's in, but it sounds really awesome. I can't wait to watch it. That's so cool. Anyway, are there any others that you guys know? Because I'm limited in this knowledge, very limited. But seriously, if you guys have recommendations, let me know. I am more than happy to put them on my Fox list or read list. Because I'm open to pretty much anything. I mean, because I was very deprived as a child of watching a lot of stuff that a lot of people know about, as my boyfriend can attest to. There was a lot. Anyway, I'm gonna go on a little tangent here, but he was telling me that there was a lot of movies that I needed to see and shows that I need to watch and books I need to read, and I was like, okay, what's that about? And he goes, just make a list. So I made a list, and said list has 13 things on it, and the 13th warrior makes 14, by the way. And he's introduced me to so many different things, and it's really opened my eyes to like just how much there is, because I was very sheltered as a kid, sadly. And yeah, it just, there's a lot out there I still haven't seen. A lot. You would be shocked, actually. That is true. Never too late to see. It's never too late. I mean, I now have streaming services, so I can like easily go on and look up stuff and watch, and it looks really cool. It looks really cool. From the pictures, I think that made it to the top of my list of things to watch. Anyway, all right. So where was I? Oh yes. So, the really cool thing that I love about the Silk Road mostly is that there was a lot of traveling going on. Not just by people, but like ideas traveled, technologies traveled, religions traveled, stories traveled, and there's actual proof of this, by the way. Well, no, I should rephrase that. There's hypothetical proof of this, that the Black Plague that, destroyed Europe came from rats that came on the Silk Road. That's hypothetical. That's the hypothetical part, but the true part is that's where also disease traveled. I mean, if you think about it, you're talking about hundreds of people visiting these little outposts along the way. They have to have somewhere to sleep, somewhere to eat, somewhere to poop, somewhere to clean themselves. And that causes a lot of diseases to be stuck in those places. And a lot of those diseases are carriers, and they get carried from one place to another, to another, to another. And, anyway, same thing with technologies. I mean, like, can you imagine being the first person with a basket? Like, how cool would that be? I mean, I'm sure, okay, not basket, but like, well, maybe a basket, but like baskets on like animals. That would be an interesting story to read. Like, being like having a story created from the mindset of a person who, I don't know, created baskets to be put on animals, and they're the first ones, and yeah, yeah. It it definitely devastated China too. Definitely. um, but yeah, just think of all the inventions that if it weren't for the Silk Road would be staying stuck. Because if you remember, like even nowadays, archaeologists are still finding stuff that originated in one country and found it in a totally different one. Um, like there's pottery, there was tools, there's shields, there's clips, there's really everything. Which is really fascinating when you think about it. There's something as tiny and insignificant as like cutlery and dishes and like leather, you know, was able to be used in such a way that it kind of created this culture of of trading, and even without words, like that's what gets me. Okay, when I was studying the Silk Road, what got me was that almost everything on there, like everything that was traded, every stop was full of people who did not understand their language or anybody else's languages but their own. But there were vendors and marketers from different religions, faiths, languages, countries in one spot. So it's like how did they talk to each other? How how did they like decide what wares to give to who? How did they figure out the prices? How did they negotiate with the local law enforcement or the local government? And because there's a lot to kind of there's a lot of logistics when it comes to that stuff. And I mean, I'm pretty sure that didn't happen for every stop along the way, but sorry, that was weird. Um, but it is shown that these were like hot spots for everybody in the surrounding area to come over and see, and do things at and buy things at and stuff like that. And it's just one thing that I absolutely love and adore about the Silk Road is because of that, because it gives us a glimpse into what it was like, because there's documentation about what it was like on the Silk Road. Not all along the way. There's several spots where there's holes in the knowledge, but we know the majority of it, and it's so fascinating because those holes we can kind of fill in ourselves. We can talk about a lost temple that finally got reconnected to the main road. Um, oh no, I do. I do. Oh no, I do. I'm just saying that like the very first time. I'm talking like very first time they ever meet. Like extremely first time. You know, when they're complete strangers and don't know each other. Like 100%. I'm sure further on they would have figured it out. And I'm talking about the ones that are like the rare dialects. Like I was saying, like there could be a forgotten kingdom off the side of the road that nobody's been in contact with for like 15 years, got their own language, their own culture, their own everything, and they finally reconnect. Well, they don't have anybody to talk to much. They don't have a mother language that isn't recent. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. You don't need a full vocabulary to trade. Just point. I know. I know. I know. I know. I know. Bear with me, okay? Let me just bear with me. Anyway, I'm seeing it from a storyteller's perspective. I'm pretty sure that people around that time were very, very smart and very, very, in with the times and all that stuff. I totally get that. But I'm just saying from a storyteller's perspective, back then would have been so awesome. So awesome to sit in those next to those fires and listen to the people just talk about their day, or to hear them talk about a raid that happened the next town over, or to talk about like the latest gossip of the royal family, or just like little things like that, or listen to a group of monks sing or talk amongst each other. It just there's so many stories that the Silk Road just kind of gives birth to. And that's kind of why I absolutely love the Silk Road. Which is why I made a video on it. And we are going to listen to it if it pops up. If it pops up. Okay, yeah, we're good. Awesome. Alright. Okay, so I need to talk about the Silk Road. And I need you to forget. Okay. Give me a quick second. Okay, so I need to talk about the Silk Road. And I need you to forget everything the phrase trade route makes you picture. Because I promise you. Oh, hold on, let me fix the volume. It's not that. It's not a highway. It's not a supply chain. It's not some tidy line on a map with an arrow that says goods go this way. Here's the thing that broke my brain a little. The Silk Road wasn't. That is true. That is true. Wasn't a road. But where do you think it came from? Like, I'm pretty sure that no Greek was going to Mesopotamia to say, hey, here, copy and paste these. Pretty sure they talked somewhere along the road. Anyway. There wasn't a sign anywhere. There wasn't even really a single Silk Road. The name got slapped on it in the 1870s by a German geographer centuries after the fact. Because Europeans love naming things even if it doesn't belong to them. The people actually... That is true. That is true. Actually walking it never called it that. To them, it was just the way you got somewhere. A tangle of trails, some barely trails at all, stretching from the Pacific coast of China all the way to the Mediterranean, splitting and merging and rerouting depending on weather, war, and whichever warlord currently felt like taxing you. It was thousands of miles of desert that will kill you if you got cocky, mountain passes that kill you if you sneeze wrong, oases that show up like plot twists, monasteries carved directly into cliff faces like someone dared a monk to commit to the bit, and cities full of people who don't speak each other's languages but somehow still ran a functioning centuries-long international economy together with no common currency or government backing any of it. Yep. See, pretty much. A merchant could leave China with a cart of silk and come back years later having met Buddhist monks, Persian astronomers, guys carrying ancient Roman coins that somehow drifted 5,000 miles from where they were minted, horse archers, sacred relics nobody back home had a name for, and stories about animals and cities so wild that his own neighbors probably assumed he was lying through his... Ooh. Amber Road. I've heard of the Amber Room, but not the Amber Road. Okay. Thank you. I'll definitely do that topic later. His teeth and needed to go to the asylum, if you know what I mean. And the thing is I keep having the same thought over and over. This sounds like a fantasy novel. Like, this is the setup. This is the map at the front of the book. You know, the one with little compass rose and the sea monster doodled in the corner. Except it happened. Reality. Like, in reality, for centuries, no wizard required. So now I'm wondering if I've had it backwards this whole time. What if fantasy doesn't imitate imagination as much as we think? What if it's imitating history? Like, what if the history has always been the weirder, more unbelievable one, and fantasy is just catching up slowly, several thousand years behind? And I'm going to sit with that idea for a while because I think it's the whole engine of this episode. So let's actually take it apart. So let's get physical for a second because I think the road framing does this whole thing a disservice before we even start. Picture the actual terrain. Yes, of course. You've got the Taklamakan Desert, which translates depending. Oh, a little side note, I struggle with some names in here. I apologize. Anyway. On who you ask, to something like, you go in, you don't come out. Mm-hmm. That's not a metaphor. That's just what the locals called it. Then you got the Pamir Mountains, nicknamed the roof of the world, where the air is thin enough that pack animals just drop. You have the Gobi. You have river crossings that only work certain months of the year. You have zero GPS, obviously. Zero weather forecasting, and your entire survival hinges on oral tradition and knowledge passed between strangers about which well still has water in it this season. Now, here's the detail that actually gets me. None of this worked without infrastructure. Like, we think of the Silk Road as this organic wandering thing, and culturally, yeah, okay, it was. But physically, somebody had to build it. Caravanserais, the big fortified rest stopped inns, were. Yeah, I found out after this it's caravanserai, not caravanserai. Sorry. Spaced out at roughly a day's travel apart. Think about that. That's not a coincidence. Mm-hmm. It's design. Like, some ruler, some empire, or local governor looked at a map and said, people need to stop and sleep exactly here, or they die in the gap. And then built a building to solve that specific problem. Like, think about what that means. Like, somewhere there was a person whose entire job was estimating how far a tired camel could realistically walk in a day, and then commissioning a wall to go up at that exact point. And now all of these were literal walls. Like, that's what they started off as. Throughout the years, they grew into, like, the buildings that I showed you. And I kind of think that's a really cool concept. Like, a guy walking through the desert, noticing that his camel's tired, putting a stick in the sand, and being like, okay, here, build here. And then moving on. Like, can you imagine that? Can you imagine being that guy? Like, yeah. It does make you wonder. Like, what kind of genre of a story would that be? You know? Like, would it be adventure? Would it be a thriller? Would it be a travel block? God, can you imagine? Travel block. A travel blog of the Silk Road. Yes! Oh, that sounds perfect. Anyway, That's not glamorous. Nobody's gonna write an epic poem about the caravanserai spacing guy. But without him, there's no Silk Road. There's just a desert that eats travelers. And I love this because it's such an unsexy, invisible piece of infrastructure holding up one of the most romanticized things in human history. It's the load-bearing wall nobody photographs. Hold on. And don't give me that. Sorry, give me a quick second. Once you start looking for it, you realize almost every mythic has that unsexy structural skeleton underneath. Every legend has a logistics department. Somebody in Rome is doing math about how many amphora of wine fit on a ship. Someone in a fantasy kingdom is figuring out how the royal messengers actually get fed. We tend to skip straight to the myth and never ask who keeps the supply lines running, and I think that's a mistake, creatively and historically. See, the myth is the tip of an iceberg made entirely of someone's incredibly boring spreadsheet. So think about it. Imagine a person who designed the invisible system nobody thinks. That's a character worth writing about. Like, that's a whole story right there. The engineer of wonder, the guy whose legacy is a well-placed wall where 1,000 other people's legends happen. Pretty cool thought. Can you imagine being that? Like, that would be like the perfect storyteller origin story, wouldn't it? Like, oh. Anyway. Okay. So, settings exist. Terrains exist. Infrastructures exist. Now, the real question, why? Why would a human being with a perfectly good home and perfectly good odds of staying alive by not doing this choose to walk into the Taklamakan? Survival doesn't get you here. Nobody dies for the vibes. So, what's actually driving this? Well, what's driving everything else in the world? Money, obviously. Because at the time, silk was worth its weight in gold in Rome. Literally. Like, there are Roman writers complaining that silk was bankrupting the empire because rich people wouldn't stop buying it. Sound familiar? Like, what would be our modern day silk? Viewers? Subscribers? Audiences? I don't know. Kind of makes you wonder, right? Yup. Yes, yes, yes. But money alone doesn't explain the monks. It doesn't explain the guy walking to India for 17 years. I know, right? You know, I'm kind of tempted to say, instead of vacationing, I'm pilgrimaging to X destination. Sorry. But okay. Okay, to be fair, a pilgrimage is a religious journey. But a vacation is just vacation. but yeah, I do agree. If you look at it from like a broad point, pilgrimages are vacations. Like vacations. Technically. Huh. Yeah. Years just to bring back better copies of Buddhist scripture because he thought the versions of China in China had been mistranslated. Yes, 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 yes. That's an actual person, by the way, like documented. A monk named Shuzang, could be saying that wrong, apologize. Seventh, actually, hold that thought. I want you to listen to this story. This is what I was telling you about. Century walked from China. Let's stop buying it. But money alone doesn't explain the monks. It doesn't explain the guy walking to India for 17 years just to bring back better copies of Buddhist scripture because he thought the versions of China in China had been mistranslated. That's an actual person, by the way, like documented. A monk named Shuzang, could be saying that wrong, apologize. 7th century, walked from China through Central Asia into India and back. Mostly alone, mostly on foot. No, I have not. I didn't know they made a book like, oh. Okay, interesting. I did not know that. Definitely. Definitely. And because he had a hunch that the sacred texts he'd grown up with had been garbled somewhere along the way, and he wanted the real thing. He nearly died of thirst in the desert at one point, but kept going anyway. Like, sit with that for a bit. A guy risked his life repeatedly over the accuracy of a translation. Like, not a kingdom, not gold, a translation. That's either the most impractical decision in human history or one of the most romantic. I mean, it could be a bit of both, actually, if we're being honest. Mm-hmm. So now I've got at least 3 different engines running simultaneously on the same stretch of road. Greed, faith, and curiosity. And I don't think those 3 motivations trusted each other very much. I mean, the merchant thinks the monk is wasting his life. The monk probably thinks the merchant is missing the point of existence. And yet, they share the same caravan, the same well, the same caravanserai roof at night. Because the desert doesn't care about your motivations. It only cares whether you have water. And that's such a good, uncomfortable detail. Like, the Silk Road forced radically different value systems in physical proximity to each other, with no way to avoid each other. Think about that. Like, you can't unfollow the guy snoring next to you in a caravanserai because his goals don't align with yours. You're stuck. You're going to talk to him. You're going to learn his language a little, or he'll learn yours out of boredom and self-preservation. And honestly, if you think about it, that's such a rare condition now. Like, we built a whole modern world specifically engineered to let us avoid people who don't share our motivations. Algorithms sort us into little value-aligned bubbles. The Silk Road physically could not do that. The desert doesn't have a For You page. I mean, it has one well, and everyone's standing around it, whether they liked each other's God or not. Now imagine it. Trust on the Silk Road wasn't a nice to have. It was structural. Like, you couldn't survive this network alone. Every single traveler at some point was entirely dependent on a stranger who owed them nothing. For water, for directions, for a place to sleep, for not being murdered in the night. Multiply that by centuries and thousands of travelers, and you have this staggering, largely unrecorded mountain of human trust. Transaction after transaction that nobody writes history books about because guy shared his tea with another guy and neither of them died doesn't really sound like history. I mean, it does to some point, but if you think about it, it just sounds so boring and plain and dull. And if you think about it, the most boring, dull points of our lives are actually where things are most fascinating, or at least starting to be. I'll get to that. But it is history. It's actually most of it, if you think about it. And I don't want to sugarcoat this because it matters, and skipping it would make the whole thing feel like a theme park version of itself. The Silk Road moved beautiful things. Well, of course there was murdering in the night. I'm not saying there wasn't. I mean, not every person who traveled the Silk Road was an honest, amazing, perfect person. There were quite a few interesting characters along the way, which if you think about it, that's also like with a lot of fantasy novels, a lot of books that have journeys in them, is that you don't always get like one specific type of person. And I think this kind of like bled into those type of stories because again, there's not just one person in the region. There's like thousands of different people from different areas of their worlds. So, which includes the bad guys and the good guys. The nice ones and the I'd rather slit your throat than look at you ones. But anyway, we won't talk about those. It also moved slaves. It also moved diseases and moved conquest and forced conversion and violence that eradicated entire communities. Some of the same roads that carried Buddhist scripture also carried invading armies who burned the monasteries down a century later. And some of the same, and actually it's been proven that Genghis Khan used the Silk Road to conquer everybody, basically. Or conquer whoever he conquered. Which that kind of is an interesting historical fact that I discovered. I didn't know that. I thought that he just like pushed his armies to certain areas and said, go fight those people. But no, he used the Silk Road to his advantage. Which is like kind of scary if you think about it. Like really, really scary. Because imagine being there one night. Like you're a marketer, taking down your wares. And you hear a thunder of hooves in the distance. And at first you think, oh cool, it's another caravan coming through. And then you look and you see a banner of Genghis Khan. At least I think that was his banner. But anyway, then you see the banners and you're just like, oh no. So you quickly gather everything and run inside and hope and pray to your gods that they pass through. And some they did, some they didn't. Of course, I'm pretty sure that he also knew like who to piss and who not to piss. Yeah. Well, and we're using road lightly because as I said before, like this road was not just one specific, road. It was a bunch of like little roads that happened to connect. But yeah. Anyway. So, anyways, caravanseries that hosted merchants sharing recipes also historically functioned as nodes in slave trading networks. Like, this isn't a wholesome cultural exchange festival that occasionally had some unpleasantness on the side. That unpleasantness was baked into the same infrastructure as the wonder. And here's the thing that genuinely haunts me. Like, a lot of historians think the Black Death, the plague that killed like a third of Europe's population in the 1300s, very plausibly traveled west along the Silk Road trade networks, riding in on fleas, rats, and on the exact same caravans carrying spices and silks and stories. The same roads, the same wells, the same caravansaries where strangers slept shoulder to shoulder, trusting each other with their lives. And I keep turning that over because it wrecks the romantic version of the story in the best possible way. Mm-hmm. Like, the network that connected humanity also, at its worst moments, nearly unconnected it permanently for a huge portion of people on the western end of that road. The thing that carried perspective also carried death. Same road, same trust, same wells. And see, that's not a footnote. That's the whole complicated truth of what happens when you build a system vast and interconnected. Well, and I think a lot of people tend to forget that when they're creating stories that kind of simulate the Silk Road, is that, at least I've noticed this in a lot of stories that I've read, is that they tend to think of the positive side of things. They tend to sugarcoat, to put the rosy glasses on, so to speak, when it comes to like traveling through the towns and stuff like that. And on the road and all that stuff. And honestly, I kind of wish that they would be a bit more honest and realistic, because if you're traveling, like, yeah, you may not see a robber every day, or a burglar, or not a burglar, or like a murderer every day, but you always pass that weird guy on the horse that just stared at you a little too uneasy, or you passed that covered wagon and you felt a sense of dread, or a sense of grief, or I mean it just, like, there's so many different ways that they could Yes, vaccines first, travel later. I agree with that. If only that was the case in the Silk Road times, if only. But it's just like, it's one of my pet peeves when it comes to stories like that, is they tend to paint it so nicely. And it's like, guys, like not everything back then was sugar and roses, and it's never sugar and roses. I tried and failed several times to create that kind of a story where they passed by a guy that was like not dressed in black, by the way. He just had this like dark aura around him, and behind him was this long line of wagons, each one more sullen than the next. And the history behind it was the culture that they came from, kind of like, how they have the sky burials in, I don't remember where they have the sky burials. Is it Mongolia? Hold on, let me look. But anyway, so basically it was like my way of saying, instead of the sky burials, because they couldn't do it for that, or they couldn't do it that way because they didn't have any mountains, what they did was they would, as the caravan was going from town to town, they would pick up the dead and then drop them off into the sea. Either that or pit. I never finished that section of the thought. but I mean, like, as I got more into the story, and as I was trying to build it up and not make it so rose-colored, it was when I realized that maybe I was making it too dark. And, I didn't want to fall into that trap, so I didn't finish the story. And I kind of would like to read a story that's like that, where it's the dark and the good at the same time as you're traveling down paths. Um, because I think a lot of us tend to miss that. Um, let's see. Tibetan. Anyway, no, they're the ones that do the sky barrels. Anyway, so kind of like, I kind of fixed it, but didn't. And yeah, that story's so long gone. Not even funny. If you're wondering, RJ is right here. So, he's demanding attention as always. Aww. Alright. So anyway, where was I at? So yeah, like, I just wish people would use, when they use stuff like that, when they use a journey, when they use things between the scenes, I kind of wish that they would use that to kind of like expand into their world outside of the travels. The travelers. I mean, not like, get too broad, but just like a tiny little fraction, which I would read the hell out of a book like that. Like, or I would also play the hell out of a game like that, or watch a video like that. Like, I would love that kind of content where it does the good and the bad as you travel at the same time. Like, that would just be so perfect. So perfect. And the thing also is that it doesn't always have to connect to the story. Like, how I had it in my story with the whole caravan was that they were going to go to the same place as them, and it was going to be a whole ruckus, and then I would use that as kind of a leeway into my book, into the deeper parts of the world building, and then it just snowballed from there, where I didn't get back to the story for a long time, and the story ceased to exist. So there are goods and bads with it. But still, I would love to read it if somebody were to perfectly balance it. I have not heard of such a book, or movie, or show, or piece of content out there, but I would love that. Anyway, moving on. It doesn't get to choose what travels through it. Ideas, disease, art, violence, scripture, plague, it all moves at the same speed through the same gates, whether you wanted it to or not. Mm-hmm. Now imagine this. Someone in a caravanserai one ordinary night sleeps next to a stranger who's already sick and doesn't know it yet. That's not a villain. That's not a hero. They're just two people sharing a roof because the desert made them. And one of them is about to unknowingly change the fate of a continent. Nobody in that room knew what was happening. That's a terrifying kind of story. Mm-hmm. Like the one where nobody's the bad guy and the ending is already in motion before anyone notices. And I think kind of like the butterfly effect. I mean, if you think about it, like it sorry, that's why I love journey novels when they do it right, because then you can kind of just expand into other parts of the world with them. And like I was saying earlier, there's not 100% proof, but there are, like, oh, what is it? Like, they suspect that this is how the Black Death came to Europe. They also suspect this is how most, if not all, the diseases back then were, taken or moved from one place to another. Of course, not historical fact. I will say that. Not historical nut. But I do think that that's interesting because it's just like the butterfly effect. Like they were carrying something so tiny, so teeny tiny that they didn't know the effect that it was going to have. And of course, like I hope they did, and then just kind of went, oh, cool, okay, or like something happened. But I don't know. I just can't live with them not knowing at all that that's what happened. But then again, it also reminds us that every single one of the decisions that we make on a daily basis have kind of the same effect. So, anyways. Oh, why did I do that? I think that's worth remembering every time we get dreamy about connection as an unqualified good. Connection is neutral. It amplifies whatever you put into it. That was true on a camel route in the 1300s, and it's still true on your phone right now. All right, so let's get back to the people, because this is where it gets really good. Like, we usually tell history through empires and armies and famous explorers. Yeah, I know. But again, it's the whole cause and effect thing, right? They were very incompetent back then. But we won't get into that because that would take a whole nother stream. Because, like, even though I'm sure there are pretty smart people, along the route and traveling the route, I don't think everybody, well, no, let me rephrase it this way. They didn't know everything we know now. They didn't. So now, knowing what we know, I kind of wonder if the Silk Road still existed to this day at the same capacity that it existed back then. Like, no cars, just camels, no cell phone service, just people walking. Like, what would that look like today? You know? Like, anyway. But yes, I agree. A lot of them were incompetent back then. But to be fair, they didn't really have many. They didn't have as much advanced stuff as we do now. So, kind of have to give them a little bit of leeway there. With their names bolded in the textbooks. But I keep getting stuck on a specific group most people have never heard of, called the Sogdians. I could be saying that wrong. I apologize. Anyway, so the Sogdians were, well, I'm not saying it doesn't exist today. I'm saying the idea of it, if you know what I mean. Like, yes, I know it still exists to this day. I know it does. It totally does. But I'm just saying, without cars, without any automation, without anything, kind of basically, okay, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, what if we were to put our society as it stands now, okay, into the Silk Road scenario? Like, just as it stands right now, without the technology and without any of the, any cars or anything like that. Like, what would that look like? That would be very interesting, actually. Like, if you actually think about it, like, no cars, so no emissions, so it'd be clean air, well, relatively clean. It'd be really, really hot. And And the only thing you would have to go by is the old roads, like the old road. I don't know, that just kind of, yeah. I've heard of that. Or from Central Asia, roughly modern day Uzbekistan. And for centuries, their language became the actual language of the Silk Road commerce. A lingua franca stretching from China to Persia. Of course, I've heard of those. I know, it's how trade roads look these days. But, come on. I'm saying the specific Silk Road itself. Like, with all of our politics, with all of our, just, that would actually be really hard, I think. Especially in today's political climates. Especially with all the wars and all of the insanity happening. I think it would be really hard for anybody to actually, like, you know, be nice to each other. Anyway. No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like without today's tech. So wiping out Amazon, wiping out yeah, it's not romantic. It's definitely not romantic. And I think people romanticize it a lot, which is a pet peeve of mine. Because it's like there's nothing romantic about it. Like I said in here, there's nothing romantic at all. I mean, it's just a lot like how Victorian era romanticized the revolution. Or yeah. Because to them it was all, oh, how sweet and romantic back then. But in reality, it's like, no. Like, this place was nasty. Oh, I've also done a video on that too. So, yeah, it's romanticizing is fun to a point. To a point. There's always a point. They weren't a massive empire. They didn't conquer anybody. Their power wasn't military. Mm-hmm. Their power, oddly enough, was linguistic and relational. Like, they built merchant colonies along the road. Generation after generation, family after family settling in foreign cities specifically to run trade networks. Marrying locally, raising kids who grew up trilingual, functioning as the collective tissue of the entire system. Like, think about what that actually required day to day. A merchant in a Chinese city wasn't just translating words, he was translating etiquette and what jokes landed and which ones would get you killed. He was translating religious sensitivities, business customs, how to be insulted at a lowball offer, how long you're supposed to sit in silence at a negotiation before it's rude. That's an unbelievably high skill, high stakes job. And almost nobody knows their names. Which is why I would not mind playing a game like that. To where, like, you would literally be the messenger. And you'd be kind of the voice of reason in the room. I mean, just like, can you imagine that story? Like, imagine the person sitting there going like, no, so-and-so said X, Y, and Z, and given what I know about him, and da-da-da-da-da, I think you should go with X, Y, and Z as well. And just like, I mean, they're basically, way back then, they were basically modern day politicians, if you think about it. Maybe? Or, no, that's not what they're called. Oh, like the people who do the messages between the politicians. I can't think of their names right now. Can't think of the title, but just kind of like that. Like that's that sounds like such a badass one. Okay, a bad one. I don't know. That sounds very interesting. Blood messenger. Yes, diplomats. Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you, Bess. Thank you so much. Yes, diplomats. They were the they were diplomats back then because of what they did. And I would read that book because think about it. Like they dealt with Mongolians, they dealt with Chinese, they dealt with Indians, they dealt with like everybody in that region. And everybody in that region we know do not have a good history of, hanging out and being chummy with each other. So just like the ability to have that immunity and the fear of having that immunity and just oh yeah, that would be creepy. Honestly, that would be really creepy. Anyway, really and creepy. Here's the detail that stopped me cold though. Archaeologists found a stash of letters, like actual private letters written in their language over 1600 years old, preserved because the desert is so dry it basically mummifies paper. Yep. They're called the Sogdian Ancient Letters. And let me see if I can find them. Let's see. It could be. Oh, yeah. There we go. Anyway. Here we go. As we listen. One of them is from a woman named Minwei. I could be saying that wrong. Stranded in a Chinese city, writing home, absolutely furious and heartbroken because her husband abandoned her there and she ran out of money and options. Like, think about that context. Like, a stranded woman's actual private angry letter preserved by accident by sand over 1,000 years and now sitting in a museum where anyone can go and read her heartbreak. Uh-huh. I mean, I think about her more than I think about most emperors, honestly. Like, she didn't build an empire. She didn't discover anything. She was just a person who trusted a system, trusted a husband, a trade network, a road, and got stranded by it. And had the bad luck of being extremely eloquent about her anger in a letter that happened to survive when almost nothing else did. That's the Silk Road too. Like, not just silk and spices and monks having spiritual epiphanies. A woman, alone in a city she didn't choose, writing to people who may have never gotten a letter, about being let down by exactly the kind of trust this whole network ran on. Yep. And that ordinary letter outlived the empire. We think monuments are about how history survives. Sometimes it's a receipt. Sometimes it's a complaint. Sometimes a complaint like those tablets in hold on. In ancient hieroglyphics? I think it was either hieroglyphics or ancient Greek that helped us translate the language. I can't remember their names. Anyway, but just kind of like those, like Yeah, times the thing that makes it into a thousand years into the future isn't the thing anyone intended to preserve. It's just the thing the desert happened to protect. I bet somewhere right now in a landfill or a server farm or a box in someone's attic, there's an equivalent, like a furious text message, a receipt, a grocery list that's going to accidentally survive into some future century and become somebody's Sogdian letter. We have no idea what mundane thing we're making is going to become the artifact. And that should honestly terrify and delight us in equal measure. So let's talk about a caravan guard for a second, because I think we do him a disservice by imagining that he's just muscle. So a caravan guard wasn't only protecting cargo. Think about what was physically in those saddlebags alongside the silk. Religious texts nobody back home had ever seen. Technical knowledge, papermaking techniques, for instance, which historians think may have leaked westward towards the Islamic world and eventually Europe, partially because of prisoners taken during a battle near the Talas River in the 700s. Anyway, these were guys who happened to know how paper was made and ended up teaching it to their captors. Like, think about that chain of events. A battle, a bunch of captured soldiers, and butterfly effect. One of the most important information technologies in human history, the ability to mass produce paper, potentially spreads west because POWs who just happen to have a useful skill. Pretty cool. Yeah. Maybe not their circumstances, but I think it's a pretty cool, interesting story. Like, picture it. A caravan guard, without knowing it, might be walking beside the literal future of written communication in an entirely different civilization tucked into his satchel bag. Like, he thinks he's protecting silk, but in reality, or other goods. But in reality, protecting an idea that's about to detonate quietly across an entire continent's information system a generation later. And this is the part that gets under my skin. He will never know. He's not going to live to see paper transform how Europe records law, literature, and history. He's just doing a job, watching a horizon, hoping bandits don't show up tonight. See, the people carrying the future rarely get to see it arrive. There's something good and quietly tragic about that little story lens. Like the person guarding something world-changing who will die never knowing what they protected. I think about that in terms of every small, unglamorous job that exists right now. Somebody is driving a delivery truck carrying part of something that ends up in a piece of medical equipment that saves somebody's life 3 states away, and they never find out. The scale is different, yes, but the shape of the story is identical, and most of the people carrying the future are anonymous, and they stay anonymous forever. Okay. The actual thing I cannot put down because it's so funny, but it's actually quite interesting if you think about it. So, how many mythical creatures started as someone just badly describing an animal to someone who had never seen it before? I mean, think about it. like, think about... like, okay. So my favorite story about my favorite animal ever. Okay, so the tapir. mind you, this is a different continent. I know, I know, I know. But the tapir lives in South America. Okay? So imagine being the first explorer seeing a tapir. You see this round-bodied, four-hooved, well, eight-hooved, because that's two hooves on each feet. Anyway, and with this like little short, long nose, okay, like drinking or eating or something like that. Your first instinct is, what? It's like a hippo married an elephant and had a baby. So you go home and that's what you tell people. Hey, I found a hippo with an elephant nose. And oh, and it's like what we know today is the tapir. Like back then, nobody had a word for it. Nobody knew what it was. So of course it's gonna sound like a mythological animal when you go back. And that kind of sounds familiar for some reason. Hold on. Anyway, but it's just like you keep hearing all of these stories about all the animals we know nowadays about, like elephants, about oh my god. Yeah, yeah, that's so funny. Okay, okay, you're good. That's good. Baboon. I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so yeah, like, I mean, whew, it just makes me wonder, like, how many of those mythical creatures we hear about are actually common modern day animals or animals that have recently gone extinct that we already know. Like the Pegasus. I mean, having worked in a barn myself, I could tell you right now that when a rider and a horse are just perfectly in sync, it's literally like they have wings. Like literally, it feels like it. It looks like it. Like they're just so perfectly in sync. When they jump over, it's like there's an added curve of the wing there. It's just so pretty. Um, like, well, there's that. Well, your unicorns, we now know probably are rhinos, in my opinion. Then you have like, um, what were the other ones? Yep, 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 yep. There are a lot of different things that the ancient Europeans, as I like to call them, because well, they are, as the older Europeans, well, when they were discovering things, they could only use their language to describe what they were seeing. So it's just funny to like see the mythological creatures and the myths and in the weird things that they talk about and have a modern day equivalent and be like, actually no, that's this. And by the way, for those who are wondering, the cynocephalus is a baboon. that 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 way back then, they when they described it, they thought it was a human with a dog face. So anyway, which, I mean, if you think about it, if you were to stretch a baboon, like, I guess it would work, kind of. But anyway, maybe that's where we get big butts from. Yeah. Oh, I actually haven't heard of that metal. Hold on, let me look it up. Now you have me curious. You're awesome, Bus. You're awesome. Mountain copper. Ooh. Interesting. Okay, I did not know that. I thought. Yeah, I could definitely see how it could be just normal brass. Which, by the way, did you know they actually may have found it again? Oh, I swear, out of all of the mythical cities out there, Atlantis has the greatest reoccurring story ever told. Like, it seems every 10 years it resurfaces as Atlantis found. Yeah, I know. Oh, don't get me started on UFOs. Dude, I used to live in Utah and UFOs, oh man. Skinwalker Ranch was just like, okay, I don't believe in Skinwalker Ranch. Like I just think if anything it's because there's scientific evidence to base this fact. So when humans are next to like certain metals in a large amount or at certain deposits of metals in the earth or like certain areas of earth, they tend to get I don't want to sound like a crazy person, but hallucinations. um Things that, don't make sense, and there's actually proof that mind you, I don't know how factual it is. Because last I saw the Skinwalker Ranch series, they were trying to dig into the mountain. Well, the mountain they were digging into is a rock that is known to have heavy mineral deposits of a certain kind that affect humans and affect the animals around it. I'm not saying that's what happened to the cows. I don't know. But what they were saying was that it was a UFO. And it's like, no. Sorry, no. No. No, it's not a UFO. But no, it was just wild all over Utah around that time. Around most of that area. Is that UFOs, like Roswell, it's like hugely popular and really annoying, and most of the people outside of that little town, and it is a little town, are like, guys, just chill, take your pills, take your vitamins, and drink water, and don't make us open an insane asylum, okay? at least at least from what I've seen. I could be wrong, but oh my gosh, UFOs. I mean, to be fair, we do have weird things that happen in our sky. Like the other day, because I live in Florida, I live off of the Space Coast or near the Space Coast, and we had one of the rockets go up in the air like right at sunset. And what they do is they have this jellyfish trail that pops up right at sunset if it's set perfectly within a certain atmosphere. Like, conditions have to be perfect. And the amount of people that went on their site went like, oh my gosh, there's a UFO. Oh my gosh, UFO seen on Florida coast. And I was like, guys, it's called a jellyfish and it's normal. I don't. Oh, cryptids. Oh. No. No. Because cryptids, it's the same thing. Oh my god. Like, come on. Oh. Yeah, exactly. Like cryptids are just no, no. I mean, okay, so the story behind the cryptids are fascinating and cool and like and and worth watching because the stories are fascinating. But if you look at it from the context of what is this really, you kind of have to laugh about it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I will let people have their cryptids and have their UFOs and their aliens and stuff, but it's just like, logically, if we think about this with all the facts we have, and I mean, it's great story. Like, I love the story, a plot, but um, is what you're seeing like are you actually seeing what you're seeing, or are you just seeing something that's a misconception of what it actually is? I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I mean, my boyfriend and I joke all the time about how aliens are gonna come hit Florida first, and he's ready to go back home. It's like, okay, whatever, whatever. because we live close to the Everglades, and um I mean close. I like, anyway, not close, but you know what I mean. And it's just down there they have a myth about a cryptid, about an alien cryptid, as well as a ape-man cryptid. And what's funny is people tend to mix the two or combine the two. And my boyfriend said that when they do finally invade, they're going to invade Florida, and then they're going to come and attack the house, and then he's going to kill them, and he will be multi-billionaire overnight. And I was like, good drink, good drink. Of course, he doesn't say this with a straight face. He's laughing the entire time. But, do you know how many people have seen it with their own eyes? I'm not discounting anything. I'm not discounting. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying there's misconceptions of actual animals that happen on the regular. There are mutations that look like fantasy creatures. There are such things as that. You have to accept that. I'm sorry. Um, actually, no, I think America does have. No, we don't have Fae. Oh, oh, I want to move. I want to move. I don't like here anymore. Take me. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Oh, yeah, your food bowl went. I know. Go get it. Hurry. Hurry. Like I said, he's food motivated. Anyways. So it just, I mean, back to what I was talking about. It just, there's a lot that Europeans misconceptualized about modern day animals that we've seen that we now know actually aren't. Like, yeah. Anyways. Like, there's a theory. There's a theory, and it's a theory, not a confirmed fact, so hold it loosely, that ancient reports of gold-digging ants the size of foxes, described by Greek historians as guarding treasure in Central Asia, may actually be a garbled description of Himalayan marmots, who dig burrows in gold-flecked soil and were seen from a distance at a language barrier. By people who had never encountered a marmot and had no reference point for a large burrowing rodent. So the description traveled, and by the time it reached Greece, it wasn't a marmot anymore. It was a giant gold guarding ant. That's not me being cute about it. That's an actual academic theory some historians and etymologists have proposed. Mm-hmm. And whether or not it's exactly right, the mechanism it describes is completely realistic and probable and provable. Like, Distance plus translation plus time equals transformation. Every single time. Same deal with unicorns, probably. Like rhinos, described secondhand by people who'd never seen one. Filtered through several rounds of translation and imagination, came out the other end as a horse with a single horn and magical properties. See, which if you think about it, it kind of makes sense because we now know that the rhino's horn was used for medicinal purposes in Africa. I say was because I think they stopped that a couple years ago. I could be wrong. And actually, Bus, I'm going to fight you back on that. We Americans do have fae. It's just they're not titled as fae. We have regional spirits based on Indian folklore. So technically not fae in like what Europeans think fae is. But yeah. But we do have fae over here. They're just in the Appalachians. Oh my gosh, the Appalachians. Oh, that place. No, that's a cool place. That's one place I want to visit. I want to tour all of it someday, piece by piece. Maybe over like a century, but still. No one set out to invent a unicorn. Someone just tried really hard to describe an animal only using words to someone who had never seen it before. Or ever. And which how many of us have done that? Like when, let's say, your aunt tells you to describe your best friend. What do you say? Like, yeah, you go with the descriptor of her, but what else do you say? Like, because when people are described something, they have that image in their mind. And it just adds to the misconception theory that I have. Actually, no, there's actually been proof that the immigrants brought their faes over. At least some of them. Not all, some. But it's been mostly Native American people, yes. So, you're kind of right, kind of wrong. But it says, but I'm looking it up. And it says American or European settlers brought Celtic and British fairy lore over, adapting them to American beliefs in the forests and Appalachia, which is where the majority of them came to roost for a while, we'll say. Which, if you know anything about the Appalachian Mountains, they're the oldest mountains in the world. Like, the oldest. Well, I use mountains loosely, but technically they're still mountains. The only reason I use it loosely is because I grew up in the Rocky Mountains, and my boyfriend showed me a picture of him in front of the Appalachian Mountains, and I was like, those are hills, babe. I love you, but those are hills. And he goes, no, they're mountains, but honestly, like, looking at them with what little I've seen of them, I can kind of see why people kind of give them a storyteller vibe. Like, they have that vibe about them that you just stand there for a couple minutes and you can just start imagining things, which is so nice. Anyways. The gaps got filled with imagination because that's what the human brain does with gaps. We don't leave blank spaces blank. We decorate them. And then there's Prester John. One of my favorite rabbit holes in all of medieval history. So, for centuries, European Christians genuinely believed there was a lost Christian king ruling a fabulously wealthy kingdom somewhere out past the Islamic world, in like Asia or Africa, depending on the century. And they searched for him. Sent Atlantis vibes, anybody? Expeditions looking for him. Wrote him fictional letters as if he might write back. Historians think this legend probably was stitched together from real, garbled rumors traveling back along routes like the Silk Road. Like actual reports of Christian communities in Asia, actual reports of wealthy kingdoms and powerful rulers, all mashed together over enough retellings that they solidified into one
story.
guy. A guy who never existed. He was believed in, searched for, written to for literal centuries, based on rumors. Think about the audacity of that, though. Like, an entire continent organizing actual force. We don't speak of those here. We don't speak of those here. Policy and expeditions around a guy who was basically an oral history typo. And by the time any of these stories traveled 1,000 miles down the road, reality had quietly, invisibly become myth. You do know that those people were in the Rocky Mountains, not Appalachia. Like, they didn't even settle Appalachia. They didn't even come close to the Appalachian Mountains. They were on the other side of it, my dear. Thank God. Like, nobody decided to lie. Nobody sat down and thought, I shall now invent a unicorn. It just happened gradually. The way a photocopy gets blurrier every time you copy the copy. And that feels familiar, right? It's not ancient history. That's Tuesday on the internet. Every retelling changes something. Every screenshot loses context. I heard it from a guy who heard it from a guy strips out one more caveat until what's left barely resembles what actually happened. We think we invented the broken telephone game with game chats and vague TikTok captions, but the Silk Road was running that experiment for 1,000 years before we even had a word for it. It just moved at the speed of a camel instead of Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And I want to push back for a second because I think it's worth being honest about the limits of that comparison. Like, the Silk Road version of the broken telephone game had one thing misinformation modernized, mostly doesn't. Time to breathe. See, a rumor traveling by caravan took months, sometimes years, to cross an entire continent. It had time to get challenged, corrected, argued about at a dozen stops along the way by dozens of skeptical people. Modern misinformation can cross the planet, as do most stories. Yes. But they do. In under a second. With zero friction, zero stops, and zero grumpy merchants going, well, that doesn't sound right to me, at a caravansary halfway through the journey. So, weirdly enough, the old slow version might actually have had more built-in fact-checking than the instant version does now. Slowness was actually a feature back then. That's kind of an uncomfortable thought if you think about it, and I don't have a tidy resolution for it. I just think it's true. Um, See, the moment that keeps replaying in my head isn't a battle or a royal court. It's a caravan finally reaching the end, or an oasis after weeks of crossing empty desert. I want to slow this one all the way down because I don't think I did it justice the first time I told it to myself. This is my retelling. So picture the actual physical relief of that moment. You've been rationing water for days. Your lips are cracked. Your animals are exhausting or maybe even dying. Every direction you've looked for a week has been the same color. And then green, water, shade, other human beings who aren't the 6 people you've been staring at for a month straight. See, the oasis isn't just a supply stop. It's an emotional decompression chamber. It's the one place on the entire route where the constant low-grade fear of the desert briefly, physically, lifts off your shoulders. And people talk more at oases. They gossip more. They ask more questions because for one night, survival isn't consuming every ounce of their attention. Curiosity gets some bandwidth. That's the environment where stories actually happen. Not in the desert where everyone's too depleted to think about anything but the next well. In the oasis. In the pause. That's the environment where the story actually happens. I mean, think about that. Like, someone asks what lies ahead. Another traveler casually replies, well, if you're heading north, don't take... Well, not all of them, but I'm pretty sure there were after a few days. X Pass. The last caravan disappeared there. Nobody knows why. Bandits, politics, an avalanche, disease, something stranger nobody wants to say out loud with the fire this low. It almost doesn't matter which one it actually was. Here's what I didn't sit with enough the first time I researched this. Like, notice how casually it's delivered. Not a dramatic warning, but as gossip, as small talk, as the kind of thing you mention between bites of food. The way you tell, which is kind of what I wish happened in some books. Because there's some books that could do with some book gossip, you know? At least in my opinion. I don't think that. Tell someone, oh yeah, don't take the 405 after 4. It's a nightmare. Like the banality of the delivery is what makes it terrifying in retrospect. Nobody in that circle around the fire thought they were creating a legend. They thought they were just passing along useful information. Mildly concerning. Kind of the same way you'd warn someone about a pothole. Yep. And that's exactly how myths are born. I think. Not through dramatic prophecy, but through completely ordinary conversation that later generations retroactively dress up in mystery because the outcome turned out to matter. See, nobody at that fire knew they were the opening line of a legend. They just knew they didn't want another caravan to die. And in that instant, information becomes narrative. A fact becomes a warning becomes a legend, and suddenly the Silk Road stops feeling like a trade route and starts feeling like the birthplace of mythology. Not because anybody tried to make a myth, but because uncertainty plus consequence plus retelling is basically the recipe every single time. Pretty much. And yeah. Literary food for thoughts. I love it. Yes, 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 totally, totally. Whether you're at an oasis in the 9th century or in a comments section now. And I'm not the first person to notice any of this. And honestly, some of the best proof of that theory is that storytellers keep independently landing on it centuries apart without comparing notes. Mm-hmm. Like, Marco Polo came home and described what he'd actually seen. Oh my god. I just realized you said that. Marco Polo. Who's that? Marco Polo. Anyway, oh my god. I don't know if you could tell, but I did not film this in the best of circumstances. Real cities, real courts, real trade networks, and it sounded so unbelievable that the people back in Venice assumed he was exaggerating or outright lying. Like, there's actually a persistent legend that on his deathbed, someone begged him to recant the wilder claims in his book. And he supposedly said something to the effect of, "I didn't tell half of what I saw." True or not, I love that as a thesis statement for this entire episode. Reality outran what people are willing to believe. Mm-hmm. The line between extraordinarily true story and fiction turns out to be thinner than anyone assumes. If the listener has simply never left home. Yes, yes. I mean, if you think about it, isn't all language a confusion of sounds to somebody else's ear? I mean, like Journey to the Rest. It takes a real historical journey, Shuzong's actual grueling walk to India, and transforms it into a spiritual adventure with a monk. Ooh. Peking, demons, and magic. Oh, wait. Oh, this is the one you were telling me. I found. Oh, that was incorrect. Oh, no. I should have fact checked that. Oh, no. I didn't realize. I've mentioned it in here. Well, that's the beauty of rewatching your stuff, huh? I'm sorry. Thank you for the correction, Bess. Thank you. I would go back and fix this, but actually what I'm gonna do is something better. Let's use something important. Exploration and myth making aren't separate instincts. They're the same, just wearing two different outfits depending on how much time has passed since the trip basically actually happened. And never left home. Like Journey to the Rest. Yeah, it was. That's what it says. But I don't know about you, but I keep hearing rust, not west. So I am fixing it. I am fixing it. Who was the author again? It takes a real historical journey, Shuzong's actual grueling walk to India and transforms it into a spiritual adventure with a monkey king, demons, and magic. Which tells you something important. Exploration and myth making aren't separate instincts. They're the same, just wearing two different outfits depending on how much time has passed since the trip basically actually happened. And my favorite book ever. Anyway, or collection of stories. Anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about in this. Anyway. Well, I guess it is kind of a book, isn't it? I did not read or watch it. I feel silly. I should have done that. At least I can fix it, right? Yeah. True, true. Anyway. 1001 Nights. Oh, yes. Basically documents. I love 1001 Nights. Structurally, a world where trading stories was as normal and expected as trading spices. Stories nested inside stories, told to survive another night, passed hand to hand across cultures until nobody could say for certain which country a given tale actually started in. That's not incidental to the setting. That's the Silk Road's actual mechanism. Just written down as literature instead of left as a rumor. Even now, we instinctively keep reaching for this shape. Indiana Jones chasing something across the desert was never really about the treasure. It was about the knowledge, the artifact as proof that the impossible was true all along. Uncharted lives entirely in that tension between history says this is forgotten but the myth of it never actually died. It just went quiet. Mm-hmm. We didn't invent this narrative shape from nothing. We inherited it whole from actual caravan routes and travelers who came home with stories nobody believed. And here's where it stops being a history lesson and starts messing with how I see a Tuesday. See, a road isn't a road. A port isn't a port. An airport isn't just an airport. Any place where people regularly cross paths is a place where stories are quietly mutating in real time. Right now, whether anybody's paying attention or not. What was that? Oh my goodness. Anyway, so speaking of airports, fun little fact to know about me, I accidentally spent 16 days in an airport. In Orlando airport, actually. And, through no fault of my own. And it quickly got remedied, but that's besides the point. So in those 16 days, being the storyteller that I am, I got to sit down and observe everybody around me. And it was really interesting to sit in that spot and see, a family rushing down the hall to go to like Disneyland or to go home to grandma talking about Disneyland. There were kids with bundles of toys in their arms. There were parents with either like children in their arms or passports at hand talking about their next vacation. Or there were people next to me who were on a business call, and it was just it just led me to be like, it's our modern day Silk Road, basically, is our airlines, our traffic, our like whatever have you. It's it was fascinating to sit there and kind of just observe it. And some of the stories that I've written kind of reflect that. And also like a lot of the people that I've met. I met there. And it was really wonderful to just see how, as a humanity, we just kind of, or as a human race, would help if I got the phrase right. Anyway, as we just kind of like move through these liminal spaces of just like how much energy is exuded in there, like, and how much we connect without knowing it to other people, even if it's just a little wave or just a little high. Because for me, when I was getting there, I actually was talking with a couple who were moving there to become Disney employees of Disney. And I got to talk with them about that, and they were a young couple, and it was really sweet. They had just gotten married and just got off their honeymoon and were moving. And I was like, well, that's a cool story. And I shared them like a little bit of my own story, and it got me to thinking that, I mean, mind you, that wasn't the only conversation I had there. If there's one thing you guys need to know about me, is I love to talk to random people. Anyway, so I got to like gather a bunch of different stories, and it got me to thinking that like in these liminal spaces, time just stands still, but it stands still for a reason. It's like a breath. Like you get to see how everybody reacts to each other in such a blank slate space. And it was really interesting to see the interactions and to kind of hear stories from other people and get the gist that like, even though it's a liminal space and even though people are rushing through it all the time, there's still a sense of like stories. There's still a sense of feelings in there. I mind you, a mix of feelings. Like, there's not just one. Anybody who claims there's only one in an airport has never been to an airport long enough. But it's one of those places where at least I have found that really helps you kind of feel connected to humanity itself, because you're meeting all of these different people from around the world, and you're also giving them a little taste of your world, and it's really fascinating, and I love it. And I'm sorry, I'm going on a tangent again. Anyway, but thinking of it, we're so enchanted by old stories, but they're just what survives time. Yep, and all the crap people created are, yeah, forgotten. And this Darwin's survival of ideas makes them pulp. Well, and also AI makes them pulp too. But that's a topic for another time. Like, think about the modern container part for a second. Like, really think about the way we've been thinking about caravansaries. Thousands of shipping containers moving between countries, packed by workers who will never meet the people unpacking them on the other end. cargo manifests instead of camel loads, GPS instead of oral memory about which well still has water. It's the same fundamental shape, just running at a completely different speed and scale. Goods moving and quietly, invisibly, ideas, habits, slang, recipes, fears, riding along in those same characters, absorbed by the port cities that handle them and spreading out from the docks the exact way that they used to spread outward from an oasis.
Mm-hmm.
Or think about an international airport terminal at 2 in the morning. Different time zones colliding in one overlit room. People from a dozen countries stuck in the same limbo. Forced into a kind of temporary proximity that almost nothing else in modern life produces. The gate lounge is a caravanserai. Nobody chose. I actually have that game or a game like it on my Steam list. Which that game is where you go around as a herald, collecting stories around the world. Not just America, but around the world. So I can't wait to play it. Unfortunately, my computer is, well, in desperate need of an upgrade. We'll just say that. I am in desperate need of an upgrade when it comes to that. But yeah, like, I think it's on, I think that one's on Steam too. Let me look. Oh, yep, it's on Steam. Okay, so it is on Steam. Oh! Okay. Alright. That looks like a cool game. Unfortunately, I can't afford it and I don't have a good enough computer, but I do promise you guys that when I do get a better computer, there's lots of Steam games that I want to play that are along the lines of the one that you suggested, Bess. So, definitely adding that to my wish list. Definitely added that to my wish list. Yeah. Unfortunately, my computer is only good enough to stream and do videos on. And even then, sometimes it struggles. Oh. If you do want to, ooh, really? That sounds so awesome. I can't wait to play it. If you guys do want to donate, the link is down below. Feel free. No pressure. But, yeah, it just, yeah, it sucks. It sucks having a crappy computer. There are lots of games I want to play. I mean, if you saw my stream list, you would probably not be shocked by some of the or some of the stuff I picked. But unfortunately, I can't play them. Not even Sam's. Like, oh, anyway, sorry. I'm just disappointed in that. But what can you do, right? Oh, oh. You okay? All right. The co-host is sleeping now. Supposed to be stuck there together, but they are, and for a few hours, cultures that would otherwise never touch are sitting 6 feet apart, half asleep, occasionally striking up exactly the kind of conversation that used to happen over a fire 1,000 years ago. See, trade routes never just moved products. They moved fears, religions, art, language, entirely new ways of understanding what's possible. Ports, airports, and international markets and immigrant neighborhoods are doing the exact same thing right now. At this literal moment, whether you know it or not. You've probably just walked through one this week. And I keep wondering, how many of these places are we moving through so fast, so numbly, so routinely that we've stopped noticing they're doing it at all? In this way, speed might actually be working against us. Like, the slower a story travels, the more time it has to become legend. But the faster, well, the more it just becomes noise, content, something to scroll past. Maybe part of what made the Silk Road stories so powerful is exactly the thing that would frustrate us today. They were slow enough to matter. That's an uncomfortable. That is true, but it's not common for one that old to be that complete. If you think about it. That one, I think we just got lucky on. True. It is still a very good story. Portable thought. For someone living in the instant everything era of today. But I think it's worth sitting with instead of rushing past. See, the Silk Road wasn't simply history's greatest trade network. It was one of the greatest engines of human observation. A machine, if you will, built by nobody in particular out of deserts and greed and faith and desperate curiosity, whose entire byproduct was perspective. It reminds me that creativity rarely appears out of nowhere. It grows whenever different worlds collide. A Sogdan merchant and a Chinese official, a monk and a bandit, a marmot and a Greek historian who's never left his hometown. Originality, maybe, was never about making something out of nothing. Maybe. It's simply what happens when one person notices a connection nobody else has bothered to look at yet, and has the nerve to say it out loud instead of, well, assuming somebody smarter's already thought of it. More than anything, it changes how I walk through my own world. Every train station, every shipping port, every international market, every airport terminal at an ungodly hour. Which those are very interesting. That's all I'm going to say. Very interesting. Every neighborhood where 2 or 3 cultures happen to overlap on the same block. They're all quietly running the same ancient machine right now. Invisibly, whether anyone's watching or not. Because the Silk Road isn't actually gone. The pavement's changed. The vehicle changed. The speed absolutely changed. Dramatically. Permanently. But people are still out there. Or board scholars, too. You gotta give them some credit. Because I'm pretty sure there were quite a few board scholars that were like, oh, let's just make shit up. And also to the sailors' credit, though, if you were to spend days on end at sea, you too would, well, yeah. That's all I'm gonna say. Yeah. Anyway. There. Right now. Carrying pieces of a world into another one. constantly everywhere, usually without meaning to, usually without ever finding out what happened to the piece they were carrying once they let it go. And somewhere, right now, in a gate, in a port, in a group chat at 1 in the morning, in a badly translated post about an animal nobody in the replies has ever actually seen, reality is quietly turning into story. And anyway, that's all right. So yeah, so about that, the Silk Road is probably the best examples of the butterfly effect in history. Like, it didn't start as a grand coordinated plan to change the world. It started because people wanted to trade with their neighbors. One caravan traveled a little farther, one merchant met another, one city became a stopping point, one. Yes, totally agree with that. And one route became trusted, and then things start moving. Not just silk, but ideas moved, religions, technologies, languages, stories moved, even diseases moved. Nobody's on these roads set out saying, let's reshape civilization as it stands today. They were probably making what felt like small, practical decisions in the moment. But when you zoom out, thousands of years later, well, hundreds, sorry, those tiny choices connected continents and changed the course of history. I think that's the interesting part about the butterfly effect, is it's usually invisible while you're looking at it. See, history doesn't come in with dramatic music telling people they're standing in a turning point. Most of the time, it's just another typical Tuesday. Only later do we look back and realize that one road, one conversation, one decision, or one person became the first domino in a chain that nobody could have predicted. So maybe that's the real lesson. The biggest moments in history don't always begin with the biggest events. Sometimes they begin with something so small that nobody notices it until it's already changed the world. Ah. So anyway. So thank you guys so much for coming today. What do you guys think? What should I talk about on Sunday? I don't have anything planned particularly. I'm more than happy to have suggestions, and I'll do research over the weekend. I mean, I do have everything has a hidden layer as an option where I talk about like buried cities underneath modern ones. Lost histories hiding in plain sight, that kind of thing. But we could do something else if y'all want to. I'm perfectly open to changing it. So let me know in chat right now. What do you think, Bus? I feel silly calling you Bus all the time, by the way. Is that okay if I call you that? I hope so. Anyways. But, yeah, what do you guys think? What should I talk about on Sunday? I mean, I don't really have anything planned, like I said. I could do a continuation of what I did last week, or on Tuesday, tried to do on Tuesday. What I did on Sunday. which was talking about, oh no, I could do a couple of like travel story labs if you guys want to. Because I do have a couple on my uh in my videos that I kind of want to explore and make stories from and see where that takes us. We could do that. Or we could talk about, I don't know. Ooh, good tropes. Get genres, writing things, really anything. Like, I'm game for anything. Anything that has to do with writing, gaming, or content creation in general. Like, really anything. Um, hmm. Yeah. So really anything. I mean, we could talk about one of my old videos. I have a bunch. Or we could make it into like a long form where I just discuss everything I want to discuss. I don't know. Actually, I'll do that myself, but we could talk about. Ooh, I like what you think. How to take bad tropes and twist them into a good one. Oh, Bus, you're awesome. Okay. All right, we'll do that then. Oh. Is there anything you want me to put in there for you? I could do both. Hmm. Okay. Um. Oh, you're on YouTube side. I was gonna make a Twitch poll. Oh, why aren't you on Twitch? Make this easier on me. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You're good. You're good right where you're at. Um. Hmm. Oh, I know. You're giving me good ideas though. So you are giving me good ideas. I will mull these over. I'll mull these two over and see which ones make the cut. All right. And we will convene on Sunday. Same time, same place. All right. Okay. All right. So if you guys like hanging out today, I'd love to see you guys again. YouTube us. Follow here on Twitch if you're watching on Twitch, or subscribe over on YouTube if that's where you're watching. Either way, thank you guys so much for making me a special part of your day today and spending part of it with me. I'll see you in the next stream.